Hi everyone. My name is Odunayo Eweniyi. I'm the co-founder of Shafire Global Limited, and we own three products known as Push CV, Piggy Bank, and Frontex.ng. Um, we started our startup journey in 2014, and it's been great so far. Uh, Everyone here is super experienced in the startup world, so I'm just as much here to learn as to talk about like our journey to this place. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Femi Kuti. I'm co-founder of a startup called PalmPay. PalmPay is a service that allows people to ask questions from medical doctors 24 hours a day using their mobile phone. You can receive answers in 15 minutes or less. We are live in 4 countries across the continent: Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Rwanda. We have over 150,000 registered users and 750 doctors registered on the platform. We started out in late 2015. Yeah, late 2015. And yeah, I think that's the summary of it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kola Aina with Ventures Platform. We're a seed stage fund and an accelerator. And we basically are a startup that supports startups. And I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Cool. Can we get a round of applause for them, please, guys? I feel like the energy in here is... Thank you. So we're going to have Kola start. He has a quick presentation. He's just going to give us some background on Ventures Platform and what they do and how they invest in companies. And then after that, we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so actually, I'm not talking about Ventures Platform. I am going to talk very briefly about a few ideas I have about getting funded. I'm not sure where to stand because I feel like if I stand here, Can you guys see the slides? So I think this is a very important topic, and I just thought I'll share a few tips on how to get funded and stay funded. Because typically in the life of a startup, even after your first funding round, you tend to grow and require further funding. And so, it is important to learn, how to stay funded as well. But, hopefully you benefit a bit from this. So I think that getting funded as a company is fundamentally about focusing on the basics. It really isn't about a lot of what most people think. It's quite basic in my opinion. I think that once you lay the foundation with the basics, then you can now start talking about the more complicated things like terms and how to identify the right investors. But I think even if you put those secondary things first without the right foundation, you're going to have a hard time, crossing the funding hurdle. I'm sure the founders of Piggy Bank and PalmPay would agree with me. So as I go ahead, if you disagree, raise your hand, and if you agree, nod your head. All right. So there's 8 things I'm going to share with you. The first thing is, I believe that it's one of the fundamental things that you have to do is start with why. As we talk to founders, you find that a lot of founders don't really have a personal connection or a very authentic reason why they're building the company they're building. Now, the challenge with that is building a company is hard, right? Who can attest to that? Raising money is even harder, right? So if you don't have a very clear why, I see someone in front here that is sort of doing that right now. If you don't have a very clear why, you're gonna gas out before you even get there. There's a host of other reasons, because I have to move very fast. I'll just leave it at that. Start with why, and why has to do with your personal purpose. And I'm not here to talk about purpose and all of that, but it's really about having a personal connection, a personal conviction to whatever business startup you're going to work on. And I have here a few examples of a few people that I think have a very clear conviction as to the companies that they're building. You can research some more. The second thing is really to start, right? I think it's wrong to try to raise money and then raise money before you start. So a lot of people say, oh, we want to start this business, but we need to raise money first. The right way is actually to build the first version of whatever you're trying to do And then, and we call that an MVP. Everyone knows what an MVP is? Hi. Yeah? Who doesn't know what an MVP is? Don't be shy. Okay. An MVP is a minimum viable product. So it's the first version that meets the basic minimums, right? So that's my second piece of advice. Just start. You don't need money to build that first version half the time. The first version of the Google, you guys know the Google Glass? The Google Glass device. The first version, if you go on the internet and Google it, it was built with cardboard, sticks, and rubber bands. And this was even after Google was already Google, right? So the engineers were hacking it out, and that was really the first version they built before they put a budget around, building the product. The third thing that I wanted to share is it's really critical that even as you actively fundraise, you remain focused on customers, not investors. And I know that sounds super counterintuitive, but at the end of the day, investors are going to swarm around you if you've built a product that customers love. And, Femi will tell us here, what's the YC motto?
Build something people want.
There you go. It's about customers. It's not about investors. As a matter of fact, I think seeing investors as validation is wrong. So you have companies that have raised a lot of money, but then can't really crack it, right? So you want to focus on customers, not investors. The fourth point, and there's a bunch of notes there that I hope you're seeing. The fourth point is establish a moral compass. Now, this is particularly important if you intend to continue to be able to raise funding down the road. So while you might raise your first seed round, if you haven't established a moral compass, and everyone here probably knows what I mean by moral compass, what's right and what's wrong, ensuring you don't establish a culture of adjusting the zeros a little bit. Because typically when you raise equity financing, most investors are not necessarily breathing down your neck trying to figure out everything you're doing every minute, right? So you have a lot of latitude, right? And so it's very easy to fall into the trap of adjusting your numbers a bit to keep everyone at bay. The challenge with that is before you raise any significant round of funding, there's a bit of diligence that happens. And the fundraising community is so small that if you're found to be, I don't know the right word, is it wanting or lacking? You're basically X'd, right? So you want to ensure you establish a moral compass. And you don't establish this moral compass when you're already on the road. You have to do that day one. The fifth thing I wanted to share was stay gritty. Does anyone here know the Airbnb story? Airbnb, you guys should go read that, right? At some point, the founders of Airbnb sold, I think they call them the Obama O's, cereal to fund their company. And it's actually a part of their YC acceptance story. I think it was the last thing they were working out or something, and someone mentioned it, and Paul called them back in the room. You guys know who Paul Graham is, right? Founder of YC. Called them back in the room that, look, if these guys had exhibited all this grit, then we need to invest in them. And, it sort of ties with what I said earlier about starting with why. Starting with why is fundamental to building grit, and building a business, raising funds is hard, right? So you've got to be gritty. The sixth point is traction. Like super duper important that over time, and this is one of the best examples of showing traction that I've seen. This is Paystack's announcement of 1 billion transactions. I think this was in June of this year. Like, this graphic is super telling, right? Like growth over time, and investors want to see traction, progress. So if you've pitched an investor in January and you have a chance meeting again in June, for instance, and you're still fundraising, the first question I'm going to ask is, how much progress have you made in that time? And it doesn't have to be, large numbers. Progress is progress, right? And the seventh point is, don't forget the basics. So you're a startup, yes, but it's important to still remember that you need to account, you need to keep your books. Record keeping is super critical. And I think if you establish these habits day one, then you just build a culture around that. The 8th point is have your BIAG. And this comes from a book called Built to Last that I recommend everyone reads. A BIAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. So typically, when investors invest, they're really investing not in the company today, but in what the company can potentially become. Now, when I talk to founders, I'm interested in knowing what is that vision that you see beyond today. So you're starting out with Uber for Suya, for instance, but are we going to scale to Uber for everything in 10 years? Or you're starting out in Lekki, do you have an appetite for Africa? So if you talk to the founders of Google, they'll tell you from day one, they wanted to organize the world's data, right? If you talk to E.O. Flutterwave, for instance, it will tell you he's building the infrastructure for payments in Africa. And I think these days he'll probably say the world as well, right? So that's like super impressive. I mean, that's the stuff people want to key into. So you've got to figure out a way to extrapolate what you're building today into something that's bigger than you and everyone else. And to be honest, no one's really going to invest time in asking you, so how do you intend to do that, right? They're gonna ask questions about now and some of your roadmap, but it's okay to aspire and have what I call a BIAG. So in a nutshell, I mean, those are 8 things that I want you to look at. Our ventures platform, though, we look at 4 key things. So we sort of group all of that together into 4 things. So the first thing is we invest in companies that have built an MVP. So we're not very good at investing in ideas. I mean, it's great to do that, but we're not very good at doing that. So we want to see a first version, a WhatsApp version of your app, an Excel spreadsheet that works, or some offline customers. The second thing is we'd like to see some early traction. And it doesn't have to be significant, but early traction is proof that someone is willing to pay for whatever, or use at minimum, right? Because it could be free users, but they're willing to use whatever it is that you've built. The 4th thing we look for is a scalable business model. And we're particularly interested in companies and products that can scale Pan-African. So, you're in Lagos today. Is this scalable to Ghana? Is this scalable to the rest of Africa? And the 4th thing we look for is a balanced founding team. And so we're not super excited about teams that have to outsource their tech, for instance. And there are very well-researched reasons around that, trust me. And so it's important that you have a healthy balance of the technical skills, the operational skills, and the sales skills. So essentially, those are the 4 things we look for, aside some of the other things I mentioned. Now, I also thought it would be helpful to share my personal, back of the envelope cheat sheet. When I meet a founder, the first 5 things I think about. So the first thing I ask myself as an investor is, will I work for this person? Hello? I feel like I'm losing you guys. I hope it's helpful so far. So the first thing I ask myself is, will I work for this person? Seriously. If this person, if I was looking for a job, would I work for this person? And if I can answer yes to that question, and working for that person has to do with the idea they're building, the company they're building, and sort of the vibe the person makes. Can I spend time with this person? Do you understand? So essentially, if the person comes off as a jerk, clearly I can't work for them, right? So I probably would pass on the investment. The second thing I ask myself personally is this product or service 10 times better than the existing alternatives? Don't just start a startup just because it's cool. Because a lot of people are starting startups because it's cool. Right? So the idea has to be, in my mind, 10 times better than the existing alternatives. The third thing I ask myself is this the best team to make this happen? And am I willing to introduce this team to everyone in my network. Now, I've made some mistakes on this one, because you think you know a team and then you discover new things. But it's very important, because as an investor, beyond money, you need to be able to make introductions, right? And if you feel hesitation, if you feel like you can't refer someone or a team, then you're kind of handicapped. Does that make sense? So I guess one way to use this is think back to, okay, so what are the things I need to do as a founder to make sure, and I think that these questions, most investors will ask themselves the same. I mean, I've talked to a few people that don't care about the morals or ethics of the founders and would invest in any kind of founder, but those are kind of rare. The fourth thing I ask myself is, can this team or founder survive, not forever, but for some time without money? And that sort of harkens back to the other point about having a very balanced team. Because if you're building a very technical product, for instance, but you have, amongst the founding team, you have an engineer on the team, you have the operations person, you can survive and continue to build and support the product, right? Even without money, right? Or in the short term, at least. But if you have to pay some developer outside to support or build your product, I mean, it means without money, you're dead, right? So I'm interested in knowing, can this team survive without money? Do they have the skills to continue to push this startup forward if they have a funding gap? And secondly, I'm not interested in people that are building companies for money alone. I mean, and this one is not important, actually. This is just personal, right? Because I think Africa has an urgency problem, and there's so many problems that we need to solve. I think you can make money by doing good as well. So this one is a personal criteria, so please, you can delete it if you want. The fourth thing, the last thing is, can I trust and depend on these founders? Can I step out on a limb for them? Can I trust them? And this you build over time. But typically when you meet someone, there are a few quick vibes you can get or check to try to validate this. So sorry for talking for so long. Thank you for your time. I hope this has been helpful, and let's get the conversation going.
Thank you so much, Kola, for that. That was very insightful. Please write down your questions, and we'll take them at the end of the session. So, Femi, you're up first. Tell us about the PalmPay story. How did you guys raise the millions of dollars?
I'll just say so we haven't raised millions of dollars. That's just my kind of, I wish we had. But our story started way back in 2015, end of 2015. I used to work as a doctor, and so I had the idea to put together. But I noticed that people would leave the consultation room and go home, and still send me text messages. And I asked a lot of my colleagues, and they had exactly the same story. People just bothering me with text messages. And so I was like, look, people are sending these text messages because they need answers to their questions, but the doctors aren't answering these questions because it's a drain on their time, and there's no incentive for them to answer these questions. It's a demand and supply thing. Why don't we build a service that allows both parties to be happy and to be fulfilled? And that's basically how PalmPay was born. I basically started the business with my co-founder then, out of our savings. So I had some money saved, not as much as it should have been, because there wasn't PiggyVest then. So Opa and I just basically put together our savings and then hacked together the idea and hacked together a team to build it for us. So just as Kola said, we had an MVP, we put together the MVP, released it. We had, I think within the first week, probably about 20, 30 doctors, most of them colleagues of mine who were on the platform, and then we quickly started getting a lot of downloads as well. So we put that together, and obviously we'd run out of our savings, and like, okay, we need to get money to continue to run this. And they say the first set of people that you meet are one of the Fs, friends, family, or fools. Luckily, we had friends who were not foolish, so they were very helpful. So we approached a friend of mine who I've known for a long time, and told him about the idea. And he was like, "Look, guys, like this is super interesting. This is great. You have some downloads." So I'll tell the story. So the interesting thing is, so when Opa and I were having a meeting with him to kind of seal the deal and get him to invest, we had our phone on the table, and anytime somebody downloaded the app, we sort of hacked together this thing, so that anytime someone downloaded the app, it would make a bell ringing sound. So throughout the meeting, the phone is just doing bang. So like we're having a conversation. Okay, so what's your value? Bang.
That's what you call traction, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So like the phone just kept on. So at some point he was like, guys, like, what is this? What's making this sound? I was like, well, yeah, that's when somebody downloads the app. And I was like, oh, okay. How much do you want? So yeah, exactly. So the thing is, it still comes down to the whole like MVP traction, super key. You can't fake that, but it's something that you need to show. So that was our first investor. Very quickly burned through that money, a lot of learnings through that. I think the key lesson is always figure out how to build your company. Very quickly burned through that money, and we were needing some more money. And then we started sending emails. I started sending emails out to a couple of old colleagues of mine. I think the focus then, which is something that I think everybody's trying to use, is try and figure out somebody who is sort of like, who gets what you're doing. So I was very focused on people who were doctors or who had been in healthcare and they had money. So if you're building something in the transportation space, the first set of investors you should be looking at people who have done something in the transportation space, who understand what you're trying to do. So that's usually after your friend and family. Send an email to a friend of mine, a colleague. He was also very interested. That was where we got our second check from. And then we're able to sort of scale up from there. I think I'll just when we talk about our own experience, but that's probably something about.
You don't want to talk about YC?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I think explain what YC is.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, actually, I should. So after a second round of investment, we still had some money in the bank.
What are the amounts here? You're not telling us any amount.
Okay, this is a very small amount. So our first investment was $20,000. Our second investment was $150. Still astounding that one Q&A gave us $150,000. Yes, yeah. I asked myself the same question. That was our second investment. Then after that, we applied for a program called YC. If you are building a startup, you have an MVP, you think it has the potential to be a billion-dollar company, I will not implore you, I will beg you to apply to YC. It is. So YC is Y Combinator, yeah. So Y Combinator is an accelerator program in Silicon Valley that has basically groomed the likes of Stripe, Flexport, Airbnb, Dropbox, basically all those big companies that you've heard about. Yes, Paystack. Yes, sorry. How did I forget Paystack? Yes, another big company. Paystack, Flutterwave, Wi-Fi.com.ng, Hoodie, BuyPower, Isla Credit. So we're talking about really great companies. So we're applying for YC. YC's investment is also pretty sizable. It's a $120,000 check. And the equity proportion is actually very $120,000. I think it comes down to about 7%. So coming into YC is probably start with like a $1.8 million valuation, which is sizable. So we got into YC, we applied, went through the program, got into YC, and at the end of YC there's a demo day, and the demo day is basically like a beauty pageant in front of all the top, Silicon Valley investors. And then we did the demo day as well. Fortunately, we were able to get some investment there. I'm not at liberty to disclose how much that was. But it was a decent size of an investment. But I think the takeaways are just basically the same things that Kola has mentioned. At the beginning, it's basically about yourself as a founder and credibility. So the first question that people will ask with regards to a healthcare startup is, well, what do you know about healthcare? That's usually when I begin to get a bit cocky. So yeah. And then the conversation ends there. Thank you. But the point I'm trying to make is like, credibility. So the first thing that I think people want to know is about the team. Like, does the team have the credibility or the skill sets to be able to put together this product? So if you're doing something in, like, say, you're building a satellite, but the only thing you built is, putting batteries inside remote control, there's not much credibility there. So nobody will give you money. Well, let me say that, but it's very unlikely. thing at first is also the MVP. Just show that you built something, even if it makes a tiny piece of money. It just shows that it works and people are willing to pay. Then further down the line, it's a lot more about traction. So you've shown that it works, but how many people are willing to use it and how fast is it?
So another question, Femi, quickly. How do you how do you change when you're pitching to Nigerian investors versus foreign investors? And how does the story change, just for people to?
That's actually a good question. It's very different, very, very different. And I'll talk about our own experience in Silicon Valley. For international investors, there's a lot more education that you need to do, in the sense that they know very little about Nigeria. I remember one of our meetings with the VC, and they were talking through our service, and it was like, have a look at the app, and we passed them the app, and don't get offended when I say this. It's totally awesome. We pass them the app, and we fix it up, and it's like, oh, you guys speak English in Nigeria? And we're like, it was instinctive. It was like all the three co-founders just look at each other like this, and then look at him. And you know when you're giving someone a look that's like, did you seriously just ask me the dumbest question? Of all the questions you did, that was the dumbest one. And then he sees the look on our faces like, well, you know, I'm just asking. I've never been to Nigeria. You know, forgive my American accent. I've never been to Nigeria. But I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of education that you need to do. That's the first thing. But because there are bigger pockets of financing, the amounts that you can get are probably a lot more than international investors. To be honest, perfectly honest. It's a bit more difficult to do the convincing, especially because of the education. But that's probably has to be a big part of the pitch. Letting them understand that this is a big thing, and this could be, you know, the next big thing in Africa, and what the landscape is like. For Nigerian investors, it's not as difficult to do the convincing because they understand the market a lot more. On the flip side, I think the convincing that you have to do is to convince them that this is not a dumb idea. Yeah, I'll explain what I mean. So like, foreign investors on one part, because what you're asking for is not, they're not huge amounts of money to get, they're willing to take a punt or willing to take a bet. Nigerian investors, forgive me, Kola, Nigerian investors are not as willing to take a bet because these are actually sizable amounts of money. So the convincing you have to do on that side is not about the fact that the market exists, but more about the fact that you can win in that market. So they know about the market, they know it exists, but you need to convince them that, you know, it's a market you can win in. It's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing. The check sizes in Nigeria tend to be a bit smaller, but one good thing about Nigerian investors, especially if you're building an African-based business, they're a lot more helpful in terms of the connections and in terms of like the openings that they can give. So if I wanted to split it, how would you break your pitch? Nigerian investor would be more, how am I the team that is going to win in this market, and how am I building a business here? Foreign investor is more, how is this even a market? Like, how is this even a business? You understand? Plus the education about, you know, Africa and, you know, how this works in Africa.
Thanks so much, Femi. And last question, how do you think about valuation? So you and Ope just sat in a room, right, and came up with a number. Walk us through the logic behind that.
To be perfectly honest with you, there is no logic around valuation. There's not. It's, I mean, I don't, anybody might have a different opinion, but there's not. It's basically a mixture of, I mean, everybody would tell you that, yeah, so, because I also used to work in investment banking, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's always a multiple of the revenue. So, like, there are like multiple calculations, or, you know, you're running a DCF analysis or something like that. For a startup, more often than not, nobody ever does that. It's more often than not a mixture between trends in the market. So if you're in a market where you have an MVP, but you don't have that much traction, the max that anybody has done in terms of valuation is probably like $500,000, right? Like, it's unlikely you will get more than that. So it's one more part is like, you know, trends within the market. And I think in the other part is also about, I'm looking for private chunk, because there are a lot of other things in it, like negotiation. So it's like a decision between the buyer and the seller. And I'll explain what I mean. So say so in Nigeria, for example, rule of thumb, if you have a business with with an MVP and a little bit of traction, more often than not, you would get anything between $150,000 to $200,000 valuation. Is that about right? That's usually what you would get. It's actually gone up. I think when we started the business, it was usually around $100,000. So what I mean is you have an MVP, you have a few customers, you're probably not making that much money, but you're in something that's interesting. Max somebody will give you something around 150,000. Because that's usually the trend, and that's the rule of thumb in this market. In the US, it's very different. It's not strange to find somebody who's starting a business with a $1 million valuation. Kind of companies that get into YC, MVP, with a few customers, the 1.8 million, $2 million valuation. But that's because that's the trend in that market. So if you're raising in a certain market, you have to understand that trend. That's on one side. And then the other side is also about the negotiation. So what I mean by that is, if you are so think about like demand and supply, right? Basic economics, right? If you're a super hot company that everybody wants to invest in, right? You can set your price. So rule of thumb in the market might be 150, but there's just so many people that want a piece of your action that you're like, you know what? I'm 250. And then if you say 250 and someone's like 250, done. And you're like, okay, I could probably play with this a bit more, that kind of thing. It's always like demand and supply. So it's a mixture of those two things that I think determine valuation rather than any specific metric.
So we'll let Kola jump on that quickly, and then we're over to Odunayo.
So I think the simplest way to answer the question of valuation is, valuation is what an investor really pays for the company. To be honest, it's that simple. So there's no use if you get someone to value a company and no one is able to buy something like that. Now, looking at it that way doesn't work very well for the startup. But like you said, it's really a function of the market. Now, venture platform, we value companies that come in the program. We typically value them on a flat 200K valuation. My class is that everyone has a plan until the best comes in the day. So you take that valuation to the market, and if you can get investors to write you a check at that valuation, it basically cost corrected your valuation. So it's a tricky issue. It's more of an art than a science. And I think it makes sense for startups to utilize certain tools to arrive at the value. For our startups, they have a valuation report that they that can be referenced by an independent value. But to be honest, it's about how much you invest in it.
Thank you for that. So Odunayo, you have this conglomerate, as I call it, called Sharper, but I don't really understand, so you need to explain it to all of us. You have 6 co-founders.
No, I have 5.
5 co-founders.
There's
Okay.
6.
So please explain what happened there,
Okay.
what the thought is.
Okay.
But I like it though.
Okay. So, hi again. I just want to say thank you for having me. Not used to speaking to large crowds. So, okay. So I was in Covenant University along with every single one of my co-founders. So I've known them for over 8 years now, and some of them graduated in 2012, and I graduated in 2013. And we had all kind of lost touch, but we were friends. And after graduating, I didn't have any money because there's this kind of culture shock that you experience between your time in private school and your time in real world. And we see students like to say it's a lie, but it's not a lie. I didn't have anything, and then I was trying to get a job. And I attended an interview that I had passed, but the Nigerian factor was there, and I didn't get the job because the job was offered to someone who had better connections than me. I have to point out now that I graduated with a first-class degree, so I really expected to get that job. I also had that new graduate entitlement to go with everything. So I was on my way back from an interview, from a job I didn't get, and Somto, who is actually our CEO, leaned out of the window and called me. And I entered. I'm like, I didn't even know he lived in my estate. And then he spoke to me about a startup he was working on at the time. So, and that became my job from that day. And after a while, it was a discount platform where we issued cards to businesses, and businesses gave their client cards, and those cards gave people discounts, and we called it paroles. So I worked there, and then we realized, though, that Nigeria was not ready for that kind of thing. People were denying their clients discounts and stuff like that. It was a whole thing. and so because while I was working there, I'd been constantly applying for jobs, and I still didn't get one. And then I kept complaining to Somto. And then one day in the middle of the night, he sent me a link, and the link was for Push CV. And I'm like, what is this? And then he told me, let's start rewriting CVs for people. I mean, like one of the big problems about why people are not getting good jobs is that they don't have CVs. So yeah, at the time, we started writing CVs for people, and then I and him started working on Push CV in addition to what we were working on before. And so before we knew it, Push CV had gathered up to 10,000 users, and people were now starting to ask us, after you write the CV, can you send it out for jobs for us? And we're like, I mean, sure, like if you can pay for it. And then they started to pay. So and all of this time, we were still bootstrapping. We were doing it with our own money. And it was a very little money, but we were managing because the office was just right below our apartment. So there was not a lot of expenses. And one day we were looking through the internet and we saw an ad from Lead Path Accelerator. We applied, didn't expect to get a call, but we did. And we went to Mr. Olumide's office and we quickly put together a team. So it was Somto's two co-founders on his startup currently. We went for the meeting, and Mr. Olumide, who is still our investor till today, was really interested in the team. And then he asked all of us, did any of you study HR? Like, no. I did computer engineering, Somto did mechanical engineering, so the remaining two people did computer science. Like, how are you going to hack this? So we just told him, look, and this is the thing that I really believe, that if you want to understand the subject because you're passionate about it, you will get it. I became passionate about labor and empowerment, same as Somto, simply because we saw what was happening. Our parents had the luxury of being taught the stock exchange, being taught about insurance. After the stock market crashed, my dad never mentioned the stock market to me again. So till today, I still don't know how to invest in anything. And I think that's a real shame. And so that's what we told him. And Mr. Olumide told us that they were going to invest in us. And then Somto decided, look, we need more people. Like 4 was not enough. So we called Terry. Terry is our product officer who was working at a multinational then. Come join us. And then we also called another girl who was working as an accountant. She had a master's to come and be our CFO because young people have financial excesses. And so that was how we started. And we were 7 at the time, right? And so we started Push CV like that. Mr. Olumide gave us 25,000. Super exciting. Never seen that amount of money in my life. So it was like, it was great. And we started to grow Push CV, grew it. But the growth was still slow. Now, the thing that I think is really important when you are starting something is that when you have passion, I think you will hack it. That's where, look, Kola's entire presentation is really just like a roadmap for you if you want to become a startup founder. Because if there is no passion, there are still times where I just feel like, look, I'm just going to leave this thing and go and get a job. Because it's really hard, and even with funding behind you, there's a lot of hurdles you cannot cross. We worked on Push CV, 7 of us, for 8 months, and our users did not increase more than 5K between when we got funding and 8 months after. Even though we told our investors, oh look, in 8 months' time we'll be at 100K. And so from when we got funding in August of 2014, by February of 2015, we're still at about 25K users. And we kept on, and we had been touting ourselves as Jobaman Skillers. So we really had to do something. And that was when we all decided to have a brainstorming session, which we learned from Silicon Valley people. And we sat down in a room until we figured out something we called the Early Employee Quest, which we organized in 2015 and helped us grow from 25K users to over 1 million users in 4 weeks. So, and it's one of the biggest things that we've ever done, all of us, and it was super impressive. And it came with a lot of problems, customer service problems and all of that. So around that time, that's where we started fundraising. That was my first experience with actual real fundraising, because Mr. Olumide was kind of like our big brother. He really took us under his wing. And Push CV itself raised about 200K from angel investors. Like he mentioned, friends, family, all those people. So Mr. Olumide gathered a team of super great angel investors who believed in the team. And look, your product needs to be great, but your team needs to be solid. If your team is not solid, the product is going to fizzle out. You can go to many websites and check. If your product is great and your team is not solid, one of them is going to cancel the other out and you are left with zero. So after that, we raised 200K and started growing, and like typical people, $200K, yeah, sorry, yeah. Come on. And so we started, and because it came with many problems, we started to hire. And then we hired so many people and we ran out of money. That's where the funding gap thing you were talking about. You basically told our story, because we ran out of money and then we were left with ourselves again. Do you understand? So we basically went back to zero in a year and a half. So in that time, one of our founders decided to pursue another business outside of the Kenya. It was very amicable. He still works from really near us, but we became 6 on that journey. And then he's back again, so we're 7 again. This is... But what I'm trying to point out, though, is the perseverance that needs to come with the startup life, right? When we ran out of money, that was towards the end of the year. I didn't know what I was going to tell my parents, who had been pushing for a master's. And it was the same for all of us. Our parents had been, so what are you going to do next? And I'm telling them, no, I'm building this thing. And then I didn't have anything to build with. Do you understand? So we started to use our own money again. And the thing about it is, at the end of 2015, by that time, when we started to rebuild, we now started rebuilding with a lean team. And that's why anybody from SharpHire will tell you a lean team is one of the most important things that you can think about. Save your money. If you don't absolutely need to hire this person for this role, if your team will not implode, if you don't hire this person, don't hire that person. That's an expense that you're going to regret later, right? So when we started rebuilding, and by the end of 2016, we were kind of great. But what we started to notice was, of all this multitude of users we had on Push CV, after you get them jobs, they're no longer your clients, right? How do you keep these people? One of the things that I don't want to do is amass this number of users and then just get them jobs and then they just become not my user anymore. That was really where the idea of Piggy Bank came from. It came from that and the fact that us as personal people were also not saving properly, right? So we decided, okay, so when you get these people jobs, how can you make sure that they have a better quality of life than when after you give them the job, right? The thing about it is, Nigeria is a very difficult place. If you're a graduate who just got a job, chances are you want to move out of your parents' house, yeah? You want to transport yourself to work. You want to go to the cinema every week. All of these things with your 70 to 100K salary. So it's important that you save. So on December 31st, when people on Twitter were celebrating breaking wooden boxes, we decided, okay, how can you digitize this process? How can you make this process even more scalable? And so that's how we built Piggy Bank. And the story of Piggy Bank is very familiar to many people because it basically played out on Twitter. And after that, people kept on coming like, okay, I have a job, but I want a side gig, but I don't have the money for a website. How can I do this? And that's where the idea of front desk came from. Now, in between all of this, I want to point out that if you don't have a large team like ours, I don't really advocate that you go into many things at once. Because one of the issues we've had with investors is, are you doing anything else? And then we were really, you can't say no. Do you get? And then that also implies to the investor that you're not focused. So what we did was, at the end of the day, we spun out all these products into different companies, and a set of founders took one under their wing and started to build. So that's where we're at today. That was really long-winded.
So is it all under SharpHire?
So yeah, when we tried to register Push CV, we were not allowed to register because of CV, and none of us had an HR certification. So we had to register another name, which was lucky for us, because it ended up being like the name we use for different things. So SharpHire basically owns all of each company you get. So all the investors we've had so far have invested in SharpHire. Till today, Piggy Bank as a company has not raised any money. The last investment we raised was the 200K that we raised for Push CV. Do you understand? So right now, Piggy Bank is a standalone company, 100% owned by SharpHire.
So do you want to talk about specific things in that fundraising process? How did you sell yourself to the family community? Understood. Also, how do you guys decide what ideas you want to do? And you just wake up and say, okay.
No, it's like, okay, so the fundraising process for Mr. Olumide was basically us going there as really green people. Mr. Olumide's lead path then was really geared at people like us. You don't have a lot of experience in this space, but you want to do this. So it was more like a teaching process. So when we told him the idea, he told us his own ideas for how we could grow it, and we were in agreement. So the early stage process is usually like, do you vibe with this person? Like, are you people on the same page? Do you guys agree about where you're going with this product? Like later stage investors are more like, okay, take money and grow. The early stage people are people who you see almost every day, who ask you, so what are you doing with this particular problem? Like, they really go granular. So in that day in Mr. Olumide's office, he asked us, how many CVs have you written? Who writes the CVs? Like, those kind of questions. By the time we were getting our later stage investment, we didn't get that kind of question again. So, and for like, between the time we got the 25K and the time we got the 200K, we were seeing Mr. Olumide every day, like reporting to him. If you didn't see him, you speak to him on WhatsApp, you speak to him on BlackBerry, like, and just let him know, okay, so today, this is what we did today. So the process of early stage investment is you have to be really careful who you get in bed with, because they are like it's like growing up, your childhood, like that's your formative year in like startup world. So you have to be really careful, pick them well, because they really go deep into your business, and if you don't have a great relationship, you will ruin your product. So like it's really about the vibe. Like, do you guys get along? Do you guys agree? Can they see your vision? Can you see theirs? That kind of thing. That's how the early stage was. But for the later stage, it was more like, okay, so people have taken a bet on you. Did it pay off for them? And for us, it did. And so we were able to easily convince the next set of people, look, guys, we've done this so far. This person has given us money. You can see like what his money that he gave us then is worth now. And this is what we hope to do for you. And all of those things are really integral. At that time, we hadn't really got experience with financial models and stuff. So it was really more about like, how can you sell yourself as a person? So, you just push yourself forward like, oh yeah, I got a first-class degree in computer engineering. I understand product engineering. I understand operations. I understand this. What of him? He has built this. He has built that. He has built that. He has sold this. So we're really more like really selling the team. Now at this stage is where now your operation and like the knowledge, the high-level knowledge really comes to play. Do you have a business plan? Do you have a financial model? Do you have an executive summary? Now we're in 2017 now, so like all those 2014 things don't really apply anymore. You have to have all these things before you can go to an investor. They will ask you, what numbers are you projecting for 2019? If you don't readily have those things, like I don't know, Kola, would you give them? Because like I don't know. Everybody have spoken. I went on the pitch drive. Everybody was like, so in 2019, what do you think Piggy Bank will be saving? And all of those numbers, those Excel sheet, that Excel sheet knowledge, Microsoft Word is really important for when you now like want to raise at this particular time. Nigeria is really growing with the startup world, with the technological landscape, and our investors are getting more savvy. So like your coding bullshit is not going to cut it. Like no. So you really have to pull it together, and you have to have a master salesperson on your team, like someone that can really package your team together and sell it. And for how we choose products, I would say Somto is like the product visionary on the team. That's not really my strong suit. I'm the operations person, so I'm just really like a great manager. So what we do is this. Well, after Push CV and Piggy, we had other products. We had like 99 staff. We had 500 dishes, which are like the website are on, but like the products are like defunct because we decided, okay, we think that like people would want this. We went out, did a beta test. People did want it. Like we chose We usually choose startups targeted towards people between the ages of 18 and 40 because that's the demographic that we want to work with. So when people say you're not focused, we really try to explain to them, like, I don't see it as the businesses, I see it as the age group. What do they need? What does this market need? So that's the thing that we started working with. So they need jobs, give them jobs. They need to save, give them savings. They need side gigs because Nigeria is difficult, give them that. So we wanted 99 staff, they want to outsource businesses, give them that. Like, people here don't like to cook anymore, they want to order food, give them that. But like, the thing that's how we pick. So we pick real problems in the demographic. But the thing I like really want to point out is when it isn't working, when it actually isn't working, don't be afraid to close it and stop it, like, and do something else, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just need to. Can you give us some context on what piggyback is?
Okay.
People who don't know.
Oh,
and
yeah,
tell us
sorry.
how you make- how
Okay,
you
so
make money.
Piggy bank is an I feel like they know piggy bank. Like, do you
Does
guys?
anybody here know what piggyback is? Who
No,
doesn't know
no,
what piggyback
no. Oh, I'm so heartbroken. Jesus. Okay. Piggybank.ng is an automated savings platform that allows you to save periodically, daily, weekly, or monthly until you reach a savings target. So we have an Android app, we have an iPhone app. You can just log in, decide you want to save 100 naira daily, 1,000 naira weekly, 5,000 naira monthly, and you just add your card and it starts to debit you. When you reach your target, you can withdraw your money. We also have 4 fixed withdrawal days in a year where you can take out your money for free. But because we are actually trying to help you save, if you try to withdraw outside of your 4 quarterly withdrawal dates, you'll be charged a 5% early withdrawal fee of the amount you want to take out. We've been around since April 2016, and we've been doing pretty good, I think. Thank you. We don't give you magical interests. With the interests are like very similar to commercial bank interest, just a little higher. While commercial banks will offer you about 3.5 annually, we are able to offer you 6% because we have partnerships with all of the banks and they're able to give us favorable rates. So yeah.
I have to give a personal story there. I love the product.
Thank
I never
you.
used to save, and now I save.
Me too.
Fantastic. But it means I'm always broke now because I have no money.
But you have money in your piggy bank, so
Yeah,
you're rich.
but
You're
I'm
rich. You're rich. Don't worry, just understand.
So Kola just wants to give it quick.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about specifically?
I know. I just think you should like go for your dreams if you want to start a startup. It's really hard, mostly thankless, but like the rewards are pretty okay, I guess.
Round of applause for that. So Kola just give a quick comment.
So I just wanted to recognize the Sharp Hire team. I think they deserve a round of applause. But I also want to emphasize that don't try what they try. Like, seriously, don't. Like, these guys are outliers, right? Like, it's very hard to do many things well. And I had a chance to talk to the Sharp Hire team, I believe about 2 years ago or so. I walked on it because I thought they were doing too many things. There's none of those formal moments, right?
No, but at the time it was valid. I'm not going to take that away. It was
Yeah, but
valid.
they have since focused. You know, they have since focused, but it's really hard. And don't think, I mean, because one true question I always ask is, what else are you working on? And the moment I hear something else, I'm not interested. You know, except yes, Shopify or Elon Musk or so round of applause for them.
Sorry, just to point out, now each founder can say, I'm not working on anything and anything else, and it's important that you get to that point, right? Before we were saying, no, we're running other things, but since we actually kind of separated, you take this product and work on it, like everybody else makes the decision, but who's actively working on it, that will be me. Like, I'm working actively on Piggy Bank. Terry, our product person, actively works on front desk, and we have people running Push CV. And so when you ask me, are you actively working on something else, I can tell you no, because I'm only working on Piggy Bank. So yeah.
So if an investor wanted to come into just piggyback, is that possible?
Yeah, it is. It's a wholly like separate company.
Okay.
You're welcome. We're taking people. Always be raising, you know.
So we finished the first half of this fantastic session. Is everyone enjoying it? Can we get a round of applause? Thank you. So now we're going into a more exciting part. We're going to do a mock fundraising pitch. So Femi and Odunayo are going to pitch 2 separate companies to our wonderful investor. And at the end, you guys are going to judge who you think should get the money. Are you ready? So let's get ready a little bit. Femi,
Now it is.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
So guys, you just need to imagine this is a closed room. There's a window right here. And we're peering in as to what's going on. So you guys should role play, full role play, welcoming in, offering water, offering diary, and we start. You have 15 minutes.
Yeah, let's go.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Kola. Nice to meet you.
So tell me, what are you working on?
Yeah, I'm working on a company called Suba. So we are Uber for Suya. Yeah, so effectively what we do is you bring out your mobile phone, click on a button, and we bring Suya to you, wherever you are in Lagos. Yeah. So we, yeah.
What's
Suya.
Suya?
So Suya is like cured barbecued meat with nice spices on top. I actually brought some Suya with me. You can try it. Yeah, we can try it afterwards.
Depends on how this meeting goes.
Of course. If you write us a check.
So how long have you been working on this?
So we've been working on Suba for the last 9 months. So we launched in Lagos. We've built our mobile app. It's up on the Play Store. Right now we have 2,000 downloads. We've done about 3,000 deliveries since we launched 9 months ago.
How many of those deliveries are
So about 40% of those deliveries are repeat users. So a typical user comes in and then usually tends to make an order once every 2 weeks or so. Yeah.
So before this app, how are people ordering
So
Suya?
yeah, so before the app, if you wanted Suya, you would have to, you wake up, you get that craving for some good meat, spicy meat. You stand up, open the door, walk out, have to look around for, a Suya guy on the street. And then after ordering the Suya, you have some concerns about the hygiene around the Suya. Recently there was the whole concern around Ebola, and people were even scared that the meat from Suya was from bats, which were known to pass Ebola. So that's usually how people used to order Suya before. So you'd get out, try and find a Suya guy around, and something done on the street. But our Suya is hygienically packed. We make sure it's sourced from very hygienic, butchers and Suya makers, and then it's delivered to you at the convenience of your home.
You actually do the Suya.
So we don't do this. So we don't do the Suya ourselves.
That's not cooked for Suya.
No, we don't do the Suya ourselves. So we have a couple of vendors who we have vetted and made sure that they're going through a process of providing hygienic but also tasty Suya that we can deliver.
So how many of you are working on this? What's the team? Tell me about
So right now it's the core team is about 3 people, 2 co-founders and a salesperson. So myself, I handle the business side, and I have a technical co-founder who does the coding. And then we just recently hired a salesperson to try and help us. Primarily sales, he does mostly 2 things. First of all, helps us on the online sales piece and offline sales to try and get new users. And then he also helps us sign up the bike delivery people who would actually do the delivery of the Suya, because we have to handle the delivery component of that, because that's a value proposition.
So in all of this,
Yeah. So we charge people a percentage of the price of the Suya that they deliver or that they get delivered. Yeah. Plus a delivery charge depending on the distance. So there's some locations that we can do delivery for free and we just take a percentage, but if you're further out, we charge a little bit extra. The reason why we're doing that is because we're trying to, so there are some companies that do something similar, like Jumia Food or so, but they put a delivery charge on every delivery, even if the center is close by. But we basically took that out as a sort of a value proposition. And we feel that we can make the difference in terms of the volumes that we get when we get new people signing up.
talk to me about your traction. How have you performed month
So over the last 3 months, we've been so growth was quite slow initially, but I think it allows because we're spending time trying to figure out who our target customer was and trying to figure out how to target marketing to them. But over the last 3 months, we've really come into our own. So over the last 3 months, we've been growing at roughly around 90% month on month, averaged out for the last 3 months. Yeah, it's primarily it's two things. So it's a mixture of, we instituted a suya discount, or we call it the Share the Suya program. So basically, what it means is, some people are saying we should change it to Share the Spice, but we're not very sure if we'll do that. Share the Spice, Share the Suya is fine. Okay. So basically, what Share the Suya does is, if you are a Suba user, you could basically, if you get a friend of yours to download the app and make an order, we give you 50% off on your next Suya order. Yeah, like a referral system, basically. So that's been very successful. It's driven it a lot. We built it in such a way that we make it easy to share that code on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those kind of social media apps that people tend to use. So we also make it such that, after you make an order, you can, then we started, the second part is we then started a very interesting marketing program where, after you made an order on Suba, you took a picture with the Suba and then hashtagged it, hashtag Suba, that kind of thing, show the Suya on the newspaper and everything. So that's driven growth quite heavily. Yeah, so, yes, we've worked on this for the last 3 months. So our acquisition cost tends to come in around, on average, because it varies on the type of customer that we get, acquisition to paid, which is what we're tracking. So we do get people who download the app, but some might not make orders immediately, but they just want to have it on their phones. But we don't really track that. So we're focused on tracking people who, download the app and then make an order. Yeah. So our acquisition cost on that comes in around 700 naira. So a typical order is something about 400 naira. Our own cut of that, we're able to make something around 100 naira per person, or between 100 to 250 per person. So we make the money back typically within 7 orders.
So your LTV is 7 orders?
Yes. So our break even is about 7 orders. So for the most active users, they usually make 7 orders within the space of 2 months. For those who might not be as active, they can make 7 orders within like 3-4 months or so.
So it sounds to me like this is a problem that some people have.
Yes. It's serious how, a lot of people need their suya.
How big can this really get? It doesn't strike me as a big pressing problem.
Yeah.
I like scale.
Yeah.
I see this
It's a good question, and the thing is that the market for suya consumption in Nigeria is massive. Like, suya is one of the staple snacks that Nigerians, spend a lot of time eating. Nigerians love their suya. It's nothing as good as well-spiced meat. So that in itself is a big market. I don't really have estimates because of the data, access to data. I don't have estimates to how big that market is. But one thing that we're looking at is the suya market itself is quite large. But also remember the fact that we're not just suya delivery people. We're essentially building an infrastructure for the delivery of snacks on demand. So you're building this on-demand technology infrastructure that we can use not just for suya, might be able to use it for like drinks, chin-chin, puff-puff, all those other kind of snacks as well that people need on demand. Yeah, exactly. So those are on our roadmap. But we feel that, like, if we can nail down on-demand delivery of suya, like, we can extend that technology, vertically integrate that into other things as well. Yeah. So we really want to focus right now on figuring out how to deliver perfectly spiced suya within a particular time frame to an individual. So we think for us to figure that out, the technology, and then scale that might take us anything between 18 to 24 months. So we're looking at, say, 3 years from now, 3 years plus, we can begin to start expanding that. But at the same time, within those 2 years, the suya market itself alone is quite sizable. So because they're selling. So the things, I had to come here to try and be here. Yeah, I had to be here for this meeting, but yeah. But the other guys had to go sign up our users and stuff. We've had this meeting, but so he's one of the investors in Kanki, by the way. So we've had this meeting multiple times. Look, we can't disclose. Okay. Yeah.
Why suya? Are you working on any other ideas?
We are not working on any other ideas. We're not working on any other ideas. Why suya? That's a good question. I actually used to, in my free time, when I went to school, in my free time, I would actually make suya in school. Yeah, I used to be like a suya guy.
So you know good suya.
I know good suya, like really good suya. Yeah. So
Did you bring some?
I did bring some. Well, yeah, after the check. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I brought some complimentary suya for you. Like, I'm sure you'll like the taste. So I have a lot of experience in making suya, and that's what it's. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Let's double down on numbers.
Yeah, sure.
What are you projecting for the end of the year, and what's your projection for next year?
So far we've done a total of about 800,000 naira in sales, in like gross sales. That's money that comes to us in the past 9 months since launch. But most of that picked up over the last like 4 or 5 months. We're projecting that by the end of the year we should be able to hit about 1.5 million in net sales. Yeah, that comes to us. At the end of next year, hopefully that money we can double down, and then once we complete our investment round, also really push hard. We're looking to 10x that by the end of next year. So looking to do something around 15 million naira in net revenue on suya sales.
How much of that is
So that's net. So that's what comes to us like after. So we just don't bother counting what the full gross value is. So because the team is very lean, and then we pay the user, the bike men per delivery. Right now, totally, we're burning around 400,000 a month or so. Yeah. So we're looking to raise $500,000 at a valuation of $2 million. Yeah. We feel as I said, the SEO market is massive. The SEO market alone is massive. We can definitely do well over those numbers within the next 2-3 years. And then, as I said, the technology infrastructure that we're building can easily be expanded into a lot of other things.
So let's track back.
Yeah, sure.
What's your cap table like now?
So we don't have any investors right now. It's essentially been bootstrapped between myself and my co-founders. We don't like to spend a lot of time fundraising because it's very distracting. I could be out there, figuring out how to sell more suya. Not that spending time with you is waste or anything like that. But we bootstrapped up till now, and then the reason why we're doing a sizable raise like this is because we just want to go out and then raise this money and then massively scale before doing another bigger round.
So I'll tell you what our process is.
Sure.
Typically, we can make this decision in about 8 weeks.
Okay.
Because we have an investment committee.
Okay.
And everyone has to vote.
Okay.
So there's probably a ton of information we need as well.
Okay.
If we get that to you by tomorrow.
Okay.
And do some back and forth, but it's not going to be earlier than 8 weeks.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Well, that's fine. I mean, we'll definitely still be alive much after 8 weeks. I think the other I had some questions for you if you have time. The primary question that I had is, the first question was actually your process, which you've answered. A question that I have for your investee companies, is there anything that you offer apart from just the money? Is there anything that you tend to provide for your portfolio companies?
So we actually think the money is not really the greatest value.
Mhm.
It's really about our network, and we're hands-on, so we become a second or third co-founder.
Okay.
So the money really is really icing on the cake in that now.
Okay.
So it's also important to us that we spend a lot of time with our founders.
Okay.
We want to work with founders that we connect with.
Okay.
And you brought some studio, so it sounds like we're off to a good start.
I think one big focus that's for us going forward is also beginning to control a bit more of the chain in terms of supplying our vendors good beef. So I don't know if as a company or as an investor, you have any connections in the beef industry that we can sort of leverage on as well. That would be helpful. Okay.
So you want to back what you're saying?
Yeah, so one thing we've noticed is that what helps our vendors provide very good meat is the quality, very good suya, is the quality of the beef that they get. So we want to spend time helping them find good quality beef as well. So it would be helpful if you had investors who were able to get us connections in that space so we could connect our vendors with those kind of stuff. Fantastic. We actually don't have a board right now. Yeah, it's very scrappy. Yeah, small set of people. I'll have to discuss that with my co-founders. It's not really something that we spend time thinking about, but I mean, I'm sure it's something during the 8-week conversation that we can continue talking about. It's a pleasure to meet you, Kola. I'll leave the suya behind. Please don't copy my idea.
Just make sure we get our equity here. We came up with the idea here. Thank you. So, Kola, do you want to quickly comment on that? And then we'll open it up to questions for everyone. I know everyone's eager to ask.
Yeah, so I mean, I thought it was really good. I mean, he dropped a couple of things that were important. So first of all, he kept pointing in the direction of the big, hairy, audacious goal. Because the idea in itself sounds very rudimentary, but he was able to drop the new verticals they would like to explore. And then he ended at the end. Did you guys notice that last line about the beef? Like that's exciting. You know, it keeps me thinking. I also like the way he answered the question on the team. One of the best interviews I've sat in for Accelerator, we asked, and I'm not going to mention the company, but the founder, he had stains on his shirt, right? It was in the morning. And we asked him, why are you looking so scruffy, you know? He's like, oh, this came from the farm. He's been in the farm for 4 days, and this is an architect company, right? There was no better way to show dedication than like, look, this is what I'm doing, and I thought that was what he did in answering that question and his co-founders as well. And then having prior domain experience. So I'd asked who had done anything pertaining to suya before, and the guy had sold suya, you know, and he was likable. I think that's the part people forget. Like, at the end of the day, investing is about relationships, right? So it's hard to invest money in someone that you don't like. You know, so I enjoyed the conversation, and he brought suya. Like, I mean, where's the product if you don't have it, right? I mean, you have some of these meetings and you ask the guy for the app, and you don't have the app on his phone. Like, don't do that, man.
Have the app on your phone.
The app on your phone, you know? Yeah, it was all
Cool. Can we get another round of applause, everyone? Thank you so much.
One last
One last one.
He knew what LTV was, he knew what CAC was.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't understand this things that are important.
And they're just things you can Google. They're very, very online. A lot of people have written about them.
So a lot of, because it's a good point that he mentioned. It just occurred to me that a lot of the things that were mentioned there might not be intuitive or straightforward, like CAC or LTV. If you're looking for helpful resources, there is an entire guide written by Sam Altman. Sam Altman is the president of the Y Combinator Group. So it's basically how to start a startup. I think that's the title of it, How to Start a Startup. So how to start a startup is just basically everything you need to know about starting a startup. The key premise behind it is this is the information you need for a startup, but the good fallout from that is if you're able to, it gives you a lot of information that investors will also want to know and explains all these terms like, you know, CAC, LTV, VCs, seed funding, runway, Series A, Series B, all those kind of. So I think that's a good guide for everyone to start from.
I think in being helpful, you can also visit our website. There's a resources link that has a bunch of articles.
Okay, so questions. Is there a mic in the audience? Okay, I'll just run this one. Thanks. Katila. So we'll just go in the order of people raising their hands. And then guys, please ask a question. Us Nigerians, we have this thing where we have to make a statement first for 5 minutes. If you do that, I'll cut you off. Ask the question. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Wonderful session this afternoon. Okay, my name is Otobo. My question is, you said, all you said, I want to ask that where does timing comes of, how does timing, play in startup? We are aware that, Facebook wasn't the first, social kind of stuff that came on board, but because of timing, he was able to make a success. We know currently that today, Go My Way, they said by October they will be going out. Is it that they are business model not a good model, in Nigeria? So please, I want to know where does timing comes into play. Then two is it apps or website? Which of them is, will I say, is most preferable in Nigerian's market? Because most of you have been saying apps, that I don't know. Thank you.
Odunayo, you want to take this?
Well, the role of timing is super important, and I also have to point out that it's not something that you can really gauge, right? It's not super like, it's not a science, right? So you don't know when the market is ready for something. It is to his credit that Facebook is still here today, and I'm sure if you asked Mark Zuckerberg, there were times when he felt the market was not ready, but he kept at it. But like, Nigeria is a growing market, and the most important thing that you can do is study the people around you. Where are they in their technology adoption? Right, because for instance, if you like started an artificial intelligence company in Nigeria now, I would say it was ill-timed, right? That's why most people are talking about apps, because Nigerians have started to adopt apps. In 2014, it was websites, right? Today, if you go on any product's Twitter, like I know before we built an app for Piggy Bank, we were really like super stubborn about website, and then people every day, at least once, when are you guys getting an app? And so when people start to ask for an app, you give them an app, right? The mobile penetration in Nigeria is rising and fast, so you should not only focus, and like people will tell you that all like 80% of people who access Facebook every day now do so via mobile. That says something, right? That says that people are like interacting with their mobile devices more, and what is more suited to a mobile device, a website or an app? So yeah. Okay, so as the smartphone penetration is rising, it's important to realize that Android penetration is going faster than iOS simply because of the price. Do you get? So most people, and that's why like when you build an app, we release the Android version first, because the Android market is super large, because there are so many phones that run on the Android platform. Actually, almost, I don't know. There are still feature phones, but many phones are on the Android platform. iOS is a little more expensive, so the market is like a little smaller. So yeah, and and your product even matters like for the app you're going to build first. If your product is like targeted at the upper middle class, it's like expedient to figure out like how many people use Apple, and that's where the role of data in your like company comes in. Track these things to know which decisions to make first. Off the top of my head, I'll say if you're building an app, Android. Like, yeah.
Just wanted to add something really. The answers to that question, those questions are actually they're actually very nuanced.
Yeah.
Okay, because one of the favorite sayings that I've heard is companies die more from suicide than homicide, and it accounts. So basically, you're more likely to kill your own company than it is something external to kill your company. Nothing else matters. The only thing that matters is like fanatical focus on your customers. So the thing is that timing itself isn't going to matter. In the same market where you have Go My Way that's dying, you also have Taxify that's probably giving Uber a really tough time. So the thing is that I don't think timing is something that anybody should consider. If you think this is a great idea, go after it. Don't think about whether or not it's a great time. What you should be looking out for is, are people using this product? If people are using the product, the timing is right. Like nothing else matters. And in terms of like apps, I think it's also very nuanced as well, because it depends on the product that you're releasing. So if I'm releasing Uber for Suya, who are the people who are more likely to be comfortable enough to sit in their houses to orbit? There would be people with iPhones or smartphones, so I would build that kind of app for them. But say I'm selling micro insurance, so people who are earning less than 50,000 naira in a month, right? Many of those people, well, no, that's even higher. Let's say like 30,000 naira in a month, for example. You know, the likelihood is that they would have very simple dumb phones. So I would rather probably build something on SMS than I would for web. So the answer in summary, I'm sorry it sounds a bit confusing, but it depends, really. Depends.
Hello, Mike Paul. My question is in three parts. The first is for investors, the misconception, I would call it misconception, is that you have to only go to investors when they advertise all these things, the demo days, those kind of things. Can we approach investors in their offices? Can we talk to them outside of programs they organize for startups to pitch? Second thing is, I know that ecosystem in Lagos and Nigeria is developing really quickly. To fit into that, I want to ask you, as people who have gone through the journey, what are you doing to take people under your wings? Like you said someone took you under his wings put you through the process. Some of us don't have the opportunities that you did. The ways, measures you're implementing to make sure that people who have valid ideas, who want to solve problems, can do that. The third thing is the ecosystem in Lagos and Nigeria is good, but how do we translate this across Africa? I mean, as a continent, because I hear that Lagos and Kenya are up there, but I live in Ghana, I live in Accra, and one of the reasons why my voice is shaky is because Accra, we're not used to this kind of cold, so yeah, so for example, in Accra, I've been making trips around town, looking for investors, talking to people. I pitched recently to a group of people. But what are the modalities that are being put in place to translate some of the successes that have been experienced in the ecosystem in places like this across the board?
Thank you. So, Kola, you want to take the first?
Because take applications on their websites, for instance. So for Ventures Platform, if you go on our website, you can apply on our website. Now, we invest in two ways. We invest through our accelerator and outside our accelerator. But you can always apply on the website, and depending on the check size and the stage, we then make a determination as to how we want to move forward. I think what applies to us applies to most other investors, but sometimes attending events is also a good way to network and gain introductions because it's not just about, I think it's also important for startups and founders to understand that you want to sort of understand the thesis and sort of what the investor has invested in before, how have they been helpful, and you gain that by relationships and networking and talking to people. So there is no straight answer. There is no, attending events like this and engaging with people is another way. There is a resource. You can also use tools like VC for Africa, VC for A. I know there's another one I was going to share where they're able to connect startups to investors and what have you. But a good way to start is just identify all the accelerators, funds, and investors that exist, and send them emails with your deck and build relationship. I think it's also key to start by trying to build relationship. So I always tell, I'm not going to tell the story today, maybe another day.
A quick point I think for investors is when if you target the investor you're going to, so if you bring an agricultural business, go and meet Dangote, go and meet the founder of Ola. So those investors know your business, they're more likely to give you money. So someone like Kola, you should know what are the kind of companies you like to invest in. I'm not saying that publicly, but if you look at the kind of companies that come in, you should see some trends and some patterns. So it's very important. Okay. The sector agnostic, but in general, investors have specific areas they focus on. And so you target yourself towards those areas.
Okay.
So
How?
what have you done to help other founders come up?
Right, things like this. Like every time I'm asked to speak to people who are coming up, I go. Every time someone has a question for me, I answer as best as I can. My email, my DMs, everything is open for people to see it out there. I'm not yet at the stage where I can financially support a startup, but I can do support in every other way. And I'm always available for questions, always available for advice. I tell people my team is super good at brainstorming. So if you want us to help you hack whether your idea is a good one or a bad one, well, really many, so like devil's advocate, pessimist, optimist, everyone is there. So I always invite people, if you want to come to my office and pitch your idea to us and let us help you dissect it, and we're always available. And hopefully, as we grow, we'll also be able to actually financially support startups.
And then how do you spread across Africa?
Traveling is not really something that I did a lot until this year. And in my travels, what I found out was that the impression that people have of Africa, outside of Africa, is still not great. Like they asked him if we spoke English. I was also asked if we even had the internet. So things like that, that's how I'm trying to help change the impression of Africa. And when I was in Ghana early this year, and we met with some startups in Ghana. And while you may think that like your ecosystem is not as developed, I think it is actually growing. Yeah, it's actually it's budding, and I really think I like what people are doing there, and we speak to them. I have like cross-border relationships with a lot of startups in Ghana and Kenya, and some in Ethiopia and Morocco. So what we do is try to, obviously, hopefully we'll be able to form like a network or a group down the line where we can share ideas. But right now, we just like, you ask for advice on what you're trying to do with your startup, I answer. I ask for feedback and you give me and stuff like that. It's mostly an exchange of ideas.
So thank you so much.
Oh, okay. My email is odun@sharphire.com. And my Twitter account is @Odunayo Eweniyi. So yeah, the DMs are open and like yeah. Odunayo Eweniyi, like it's the same across everywhere. Sharphire, SharphHire.com.
Yeah, so pretty much the same thing. Okay, cool. I don't have a big trough of cash to give out, but like I can easily be reached out. If you're interested in applying to YC and you want help with your application, it's usually better if you have an application that's done and then you want me to help review. Always happy to do that. My email is femi.kuti@kanpe, K-A for Apple, N for November, G for Gravy, P for Papa, E for Echo.com. So that's KANGPE.com. So femi.kuti@KANGPE.com. So that's my email address. Shoot me an email. I'm not very active on Twitter. Easiest reach by email.
So quick, last comment.
So saying email is kola.aina@ventures.com. But the best way to apply to ventures.com is on our website. For the gentleman from Ghana, we're ventures.com is actually Pan-African. So my last batch, we have a company from Cameroon and a founder from Belgium. Yeah, so please, would love to have some Ghanaian companies in our batch.
Especially for the women here, like who want to start their businesses. Sorry, I love all of you, but I'm really passionate about women being able to get ahead. So please email if you have like great ideas, even if they are not tech inclined. Just email, okay? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Once again, can we thank Pulse.ng and Business Insider for hosting the podcast? And we'll be around outside if you want to talk to me.